بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله على نعمة الإسلام، والصلاة والسلام على خير الأنام وعلى آله وأصحابه الكرام، أما بعد. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. So last week we had quite an extensive session on the innovator, the Rawi who was an innovator. We spoke a bit about bid'ah, or what it was. We spoke a bit about the wobbling nature of mubtadi'. But just to summarize, a mubtadi' is a person who is an innovator. There's two types of innovation. Innovation that leads you out of the fold of Islam, and innovation that leaves you in the fold of Islam, but you become like a sinner. This is ibtida'. So the scholars differed on their opinions regarding those people who engage in bid'ah. So those people, the first type obviously is those people who do bid'ah and it takes them out of the fold of the religion. So again, the majority of the scholars say that obviously this person, if they narrate a hadith, they're mubtadi' but they're outside of religion, then you do not accept their hadith. And this is like what the majority of the scholars say. Qadi Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi, he mentions this, and Al-Amidi said that this is actually the opinion of most of the scholars, meaning some scholars do accept the hadith. So there are a minority of scholars who accept the hadith of the person who narrates hadith, but they are an innovator whose innovation takes them out of the fold of Islam. So some of the scholars accept this, and this goes against what Hafiz al-Iraqi mentions in his poem about Mustalah al-Hadith. He said, وَالْخُلْفُ فِي مُبْتَدِعٍ مَا كُفِّرَ. So there's a disagreement about narrating from a person who's an innovator, so long as they are not innovating to such an extent that it takes them out of the fold of Islam. But we know obviously there's a difference of opinion in that also. So there's a difference in opinion. Obviously, it's not a majority of the scholars. Only a few scholars say that if a person is a mubtadi' that takes them out of the fold of Islam, then we accept their narrations. This is a minority view. But Qadi Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi and Al-Amidi says that the majority of the scholars are of the opinion that you don't accept these narrations. However, that must mean that within a bid'ah that you do, and it leaves you in the fold of Islam, narrating hadith from this sort of person. What's the status regarding it? So we have 5 opinions regarding this. First opinion is that a person who is a mubtadi' narrator, an innovator, you blanketly do not accept their narration. So the first is yuraddu mutlaqan. So you blanketly do not accept the narration. This is the opinion, a famous opinion from Imam Malik, rahimahullah ta'ala. Yeah, famous opinion from Imam Malik, rahimahullah ta'ala. Imam Malik, his students, Abu Bakr, Ibn al-Baqillani, Ibn al-Hajib, al-Qarrafi, the famous Malikis, actually ascribed this opinion to Imam Malik, that he would, if there was a narrator who was an innovator, he won't accept his narration. This is what Khatib al-Baghdadi associates to Imam Malik as well. Al-Hakim mentions as well, this is the opinion of Imam Malik. And Qadi Iyad also said this is mashhur from Imam Malik. So this is the first opinion. You don't accept the narrations, regardless of who it is. And Al-Amidi also said that this is the madhab of Jamhur al-Ulama. So the Jamhur of Muhaddithin, the majority of Muhaddithin, of this opinion. This is what Al-Amidi says, but in reality, you see, there are actually difference of opinion regarding this. And the reason why they don't accept from an innovator, what would be the reasons why we don't accept from an innovator? No, remember there's 2 types of innovation. One innovation takes you out of the fold of Islam, one innovation, you are in the fold of Islam. But Imam Malik, he would not accept these innovators' innovations. Why would it be? Do you think ideas? Imam Malik wouldn't accept the innovation of the innovators who are still in the fold of Islam. This is opinion transmitted from Imam Malik.
was
Yeah. Yeah, so again, innovation, every innovation is bid'ah. But then Imam Malik also narrated the hadith of Umar, ni'matil bid'atu hadhi,
the bad innovation.
bad innovation. And even then, there's a whole discussion regarding the word kullu in the Arabic language.
Yeah.
You know, kullu, does it mean every single individual, or can some individuals be exempt? And in the Arabic language, you know, it's in the Quran and in the hadith and several different, examples where when you say kullu, it means every, but it means some can be exempt as well. For example, in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says regarding the angels who like bought said كل شيء بإذن ربها بأمر ربها, that you know everything will be destructed by the wish of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So everything, but what about the angels who are actually destroying that? What about the actual earth? It's not every single, literally every single thing. Some things can be exempt. Another example in the Quran, كل شيء هالك إلا وجهه, everything will be perished except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, except for his face, except for the dhat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, we know that the angel at that particular time, Allah is going to give the order to the angel to make everything perish, so the angel will still be there. So it's not literally every single thing. Another example from hadith is the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is reported to have said, "Kullu bani Adam khatta'un," that every child of Adam is a sinner. So what about the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself? You know, we know that he's free from sin, and this is the opinion of the Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, that the Nabi Anbiya are free from sin, the ma'soom, right? So what about that? You know, some people can be exempt. And in the language as well, you know, there's examples regarding that. So the word kullu means every, but there can be some examples regarding that. So kullu bid'atin dalala, every bid'ah is misguidance. There can be exemptions from that also. So yeah, what would be the reasons why? Man waqqara sahiba bid'atin faqad a'ana ala hadm al-islami. Whoever, you know, gives reverence to a person of innovation, then they have indeed helped the destruction of Islam. Also, this is a hadith mentioned as well. Again, this hadith is not the most authentic, but it's mentioned. Zad al-Talibin, Mishkat as well. That's not an original reference, but it's mentioned in these books. That whoever reveres a person of bid'ah, person of innovation, then they have helped in the destruction of Islam. So this is a hadith regarding that. So that's why, you know, if you're narrating from them, you're taking the words of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam from them, then you're actually helping them. You know, you're revering them. You know, they are worthy that I take the hadith from them. So this is the first opinion why they would reject it outright. But Ibn Salah is the Muqaddimah of Ibn Salah says.
Did you answer that? You got the answer of
Which
why
one?
certain hadith is not taken.
From a mubtadi'.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm saying the opinions. What are the opinions? The first opinion is that we reject it outright. And this is the reason why. Some scholars are of the opinion. So for example, the Maliki scholars, they are of this opinion. That we don't, whenever we say mubtadi', we don't accept the narration mutlaq. And this is some of the muhaddithin. Yeah, this is one group. There's 5 opinions. The second group is, okay, so regarding this opinion, Ibn Salah, which is a famous scholar of Mustalah al-Hadith, he didn't like this opinion, right? Because he said that this is in reverse, this is an opposition to what we find in the books of Hadith. Because in general, the books of Hadith actually mention riwayas and narrations from mubtadi' scholars, from innovators. So, you know, this Bukhari, Muslim, you know, even Imam Malik, even though it's his student, said that he doesn't narrate from Ahlul Bid'ah, right? Like, he doesn't narrate from even when you read the Muwatta of Imam Malik, his most famous book, the Muwatta, Sheikh Saeed says that even if you read half of it, even if you read a quarter of it, even if you read a fifth of it, you would come across like names of people who are mubtadi'. So remember, it's reported from Imam Malik that blanketly he refused to narrate from mubtadi'een. And you know, there's 4 people that Imam Malik said that he wouldn't narrate from, and then one of them was Sahib Hawa, So a person of innovation, mutlaqan, he would not narrate from them. But we find Imam Malik, we find in the Muwatta, he narrates from people like Adi ibn Thabit, he was a famous Shi'i, he's definitely a famous Shi'i. We find like Dawood ibn Hussein, he was a famous Shi'i as well. And he said that he wouldn't narrate an sahibi hawa yad'u ila hawa. He wouldn't narrate from these sort of people, from people of innovation. But we see, he has narrations from Ikrimah ibn Abi Jahl as well. People Khariji beliefs.
Hawa means air, isn't it?
Hawa means desire.
Okay.
وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى. In the Arabic language, it means desire. In Urdu, it means air. But in Arabic language, it means desire. So we find even in Imam Malik's Muwatta, he does narrate from Mubtadi'een. So how does the Malikis explain that? That's inshallah we'll explain after when we get to the next opinion. So the second opinion regarding narrating from an innovator is that you narrate from them, you're allowed to narrate from them only if they don't understand lying to be permissible. Because, for example, some groups in Islam, right, from the Shi'is, they allow taqiyya, which is kind of lying for, if you're lying for a particular motive, you're allowed to do that. So the second opinion is that you're allowed to narrate from a person who's a mubtadi only if they don't believe that lying is permissible. Right. So, for example, some groups of the Shia actually thought lying is permissible. For certain causes, like I mentioned before, some people even thought lying for the sake of to make people read more Quran. Let's invent some hadith about Quran, about certain surahs. They lied in that regard. They lied to strengthen the fiqh opinions. I talked about the hadith of Rafa Yadayn, someone invented. These sort of things, to strengthen their own opinions, they'd invent hadith, and with the belief that it's permissible. So obviously you don't narrate from these people. But in general, if a person is a mubtadi but they don't believe lying is permissible, you can narrate from them. And this is the opinion of Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala. It's transmitted from Imam Shafi'i actually, that he said, I accept that shahadatu kulli ahli hawa illa al-khattabin. So he accepts the narration of every people of bid'ah except for the Khattabun, who are a group of Shia. They are a group of like extreme Shia group. The founders Al-Khattab Al-Asadi, they obviously believed in lying is halal and this sort of thing. So this is transmitted from Imam Shafi. Ibn Abi Layla also had this opinion, and Qadi Abu Yusuf from the Hanafis, he also had this opinion that you can narrate from people as long as they don't see lying as permissible in their sort of beliefs. So this is opinion number two. Third opinion is that you can accept a narration from an innovator who doesn't propagate their innovation. So I'm an innovator, but I don't tell other people, okay, become like me, So, for example, you have certain individuals, right, they might have particular beliefs, mubtadi belief that doesn't take them out of the fold of Islam. They are still in the fold of Islam, but these are deviant beliefs. They innovate in their beliefs or innovate in their kind of thoughts. These people, they don't go out, they're not khatibs. They don't go out and propagate towards their deviance, and they don't propagate towards the deviance, then these are the individuals that you're allowed to narrate from them. Ibn Hibban rahimahullah ta'ala, who's a famous scholar of hadith, he actually says that all the scholars of hadith are in ijma', they're in consensus that you can accept from these people. But obviously it's not really an ijma', because obviously some people disagreed with that. So this is one opinion, that you can narrate from an innovator who doesn't propagate their innovation. Ibn Hibban was of this opinion, and he says that
doesn't propagate, he's not an innovator.
So he's an innovator himself, but he doesn't propagate his innovation.
Because he believes that it's wrong, but otherwise he would propagate.
As in, he's not like loud about it. He doesn't go to try and convert people. There's one thing doing it yourself, and there's one thing kind of
because he
being a khatib, being in that position, being in a position where you're an influencer, you can influence other people. In that case, they don't accept it. And this argument as well, every person of bid'ah will obviously propagate their own bid'ah, because that means that if they don't propagate, they don't really believe in it. This is how the Malikis answer, completely rejecting every person of bid'ah. So again, I mentioned the first opinion was that you completely reject them. The Maliki scholars will say, some of them will say that, we won't accept any scholars who are muqtadi, because if he doesn't propagate his religion, then he's not really a muqtadi. So this is actually their way of thinking. So that was the way of reasoning that they have. But that still doesn't answer the people in the Muwatta of Imam Malik who are muqtadi. Because there were some people in the Muwatta of Imam Malik that were muqtadi, but maybe they didn't propagate, their kind of religion or their way of thinking. The religion meaning they're Muslim, but their way of Islam. They had a different kind of beliefs. People like Hisham ad-Dastawai, he's in Bukhari as well. He didn't propagate his deviant beliefs. So that's why they narrated from him.
My thought just went to completely different from this topic. Do you know about Ibadis?
Yeah, the Ibadiyun, yeah.
Yeah, what about them?
So I know an individual actually, when I was in madrasa, he was from Oman. He came over. I didn't really know him that well, but I learned a bit about the Ibadi, so away from him.
What's their aqidah?
So what I heard about this particular sect was different to what this person was, because this person was kind of normal.
Okay.
As in, the way he explained it, there was no bid'ah. As in, they have certain Shi'i tendencies, but they don't do la'na of the Sahaba and things like that.
And they don't pray 5 times.
They do pray 5 times. That's what I thought as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe it was because of my exposure to one individual. He came from there,
Okay.
and he was in the same madrasa as me for a few months. He was there, and obviously, maybe the reason why he came was because obviously he might have had Ahlul Sunnah beliefs anyway. But he identified as Ibadi, and I can remember this brother actually. He was studying. He was studying ICT at the time, IT at the time, and he was going to do a year in England. This was, I'm going back about 8 years ago. Individual. Allah Ta'ala, I don't know about him now.
Yeah,
maybe this is.
Sorry to go.
So, opinion number, what were we talking about? So then, you have the opinion of those mubtadi'un who didn't believe in the permissibility of lying. So this is another opinion, number 4. So you're allowed to narrate from them if they said that lying was not permissible.
Yeah, but that's the second opinion, isn't it?
So in the second opinion, we said that the second opinion was
lying is
تقبل روايته إذا لا يرى إباحة
lying is
الكذب.
permissible.
Yeah, lying is permissible.
Okay.
Yeah. So if they thought lying is not permissible in there, so here it's okay. تقبل الرواية إذا لم يكن داعية وإذا لا يرى الكذب. So they don't propagate and they don't see it's permissible to lie in their religion, in their way of thinking, in their deviance. Okay. So this is, for example, so I mentioned the example last time about people in Bukhari, for example, Imran ibn Hittan. He was a famous Khariji guy, right? Kharijis, they say if you do a big sin, you're out of Islam. So if he lied, the second group says that they don't believe in the permissibility of lying because, some people thought lying was permissible. This group are saying lying, takes you out of the fold of Islam. This is kind of a difference here. So this group, for example, the Kharijis, they say lying takes you out of the fold of Islam. Imran ibn Hittan, he was an individual. Did I tell you about him and his wife?
So I think you did last week.
Did I tell you? Okay, so Imran ibn Hittan, Khariji, he was kind of an ugly guy, he's mentioned, but he's very intelligent. And he had a wife, a really beautiful lady wanted to marry him, And she said, okay, we're going to have a child. And, yeah, he'll inherit my beauty and your genius. But he says, what happens when he inherits my genius and your
You mentioned it last week.
bonus?
Yeah, you mentioned it last week.
So Imran ibn Hittan was this individual. Imam Bukhari, rahimahullah ta'ala, narrates from him. Imam Bukhari narrates from Imran ibn Hittan. But obviously, Imran ibn Hittan, he was a Khariji, but he did propagate towards his bid'ah. He was the sheikh of the Kharijis. He was the sha'ir of the Kharijis. You know, he used to make poems to such an extent, a'udhu billah. The person who assassinated Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, Abdurrahman al-Muljim al-Khariji, he made some stanzas of poetry in praise of this man. Na'udhu billah. So, ya darbatan min taqiyyin ma arada biha illa liyabluga min the arshi ridwana. Regarding, you know, this Abdurrahman ibn Muljim al-Khariji, praising this guy. Obviously, that was really wrong. Despite that, al-Bukhari narrates from him. And you might think, what would be the reasons for this? You know, why honor this guy when he's, you know, have all these deviant beliefs by narrating from him? Why would I honor him by doing that? But it was more towards, you know, the preservation of hadith. You know, you have a scale. What do I need to do? Do I need to preserve hadith, or do I need to like put this bid'ah down, put this mubtadi' down, and not give him the honor? So sometimes, you know, the preservation of hadith takes precedence, and this is what the scholar would sort of have in the individual. Now, this is what I'm saying. There's 5 opinions, so a lot of people disagreed on what's what. But the madhab of Bukhari was that, you know, he accepted from Imran ibn Hittan. And this leads me on to the next opinion, that of Ibn Daqiq al-Eid, who said that.
So we have to assume that all the hadith that is accepted by the scholars of hadith are good innovation.
Good, because
otherwise they would not
expecting the bid'ah. But the 2 conditions are that they are in the religion of Islam and they don't tell lies. And obviously it has to fulfill the conditions of Sahih. That's the first thing. But just regarding the individual Rawi. So for example, this Rawi, this narrator, he has to, you know, can't tell lies. He had to be upright. He has to be a pious individual. If he was a bad individual, you know, you would not accept from him. So he has to first fulfill the condition of dhabt. You know, he has to have a precise memory, a good memory. If he doesn't have that, you know, he falls into the other categories anyway. This is after he's fulfilled all these conditions. And then, you know, you look at, you know, this guy.
So have they classified that these are innovations in Bukhari?
So in the commentaries, you'll see that who al-Bukhari is narrating from. Al-Bukhari will only narrate from people who tell the truth. You know, he won't narrate from a person who lies or, you know, is famous for lying. And these are, you know, al-Bukhari had the strictest criteria for authenticating hadith. He had the strictest criteria for authenticating hadith, and we can see when we look into Sahih al-Bukhari, because al-Bukhari didn't write down, this is my condition for accepting hadith. People had to work it out afterwards.
Yeah.
So people looked in and, okay, he only accepted hadith from 2 people who definitely met, right? Because there was a thabit that they met. He only accepted hadith from X, Y, Z.
How would he know that these people?
So, for example,
go back and find.
So how he would know the 2 people met is because if he narrates from you, then the thubutul liqa. You know, you have affirmation that you 2 met. If he gifts you something, if it's known that he came to your village and he met you, other people would have said it.
Yeah.
You get me? So it's recorded in your biography, because, you know, al-Bukhari had to travel to the places and ask people, did so and so meet him? Did you see it with your own eyes? You know, this sort of authentication had to take place, right? So it's a rigorous kind of system. Imam Muslim, however, he has a step lower than that. He said, if there's possibility of them 2 meeting, meaning they lived in the same era, he traveled to that land, right? Possible he did travel to that land, but I'm not sure if he met or not. That was enough for him, you know, the possibility of meeting. But Bukhari needs thubutul liqa. He needs, you know, from the conditions of Bukhari are that he needs to have a confirmation that 2 people met in order for them to be included in a chain of hadith mentioned in his Sahih. So this is from the conditions of Bukhari. Quite a rigorous condition. But again, he does narrate from Muqtadi people. This is kind of the truth. that, people who are khariji, da'iya ila bid'atihim, that they propagated towards the bid'ah. He was the sheikh of the kharijis, but he saw haram, he saw kidhb as haram, lying was haram, because if you lied, you'd be out of the fold of Islam. He accepted the hadith from him. And leads on to the next point, the opinion of Ibn Daqiq al-Eid, ascribed to Ibn Daqiq al-Eid, that إذا كان عنده حديث ليس عند غيره. So if this particular mubtadi has a hadith that no one else narrates, but he's narrating this hadith, he fulfills all these conditions, then only I would narrate from him. Reason is preservation of the sunnah above, disparaging this innovator. There's two things you have to weigh up. Do I preserve the sunnah? Do I try and preserve the sunnah, or do I disparage this innovator? However, if this hadith can be found elsewhere, you'd accept the hadith from elsewhere. But this is obviously, this hadith doesn't match the particular agenda of this particular person, and it's known that this person tells the truth. He has to fulfill all the other conditions, and then only you would accept from him. So this is this sort of thing regarding this individual. And, with the condition that, they are in the deen of Islam, and with the condition, they are truthful. But like I said,
How
Imam,
is how are the hadith structured? Like, do they say that Prophet ﷺ did this, or how?
okay, so hadith, there's opinions of what hadith actually means. The hadith, according to the definition of the muhaddithin, is what the Prophet ﷺ said, what he did and what he approved of. Some people say that's what sunnah is. The sunnah is and hadith. Some people use sunnah and hadith synonymously. So they say sunnah, this is from the sunnah, this is from the hadith, meaning whatever the Prophet ﷺ said, whatever he did and whatever he approved of. And some other scholars add his shama'il, so his characteristics as well. So people add this to be